Hey, good morning.
Hey, everybody. Oh my gosh. What's up, Forestine? Enthusiastic electrons making pancakes. I am jealous of Sunday pancakes. Well, every Sunday. Hey, what's up, Zach? Um, Today we got bar talk, and we're just going to hang out and talk about some stuff. Should we do a little intro? Like, it's kind of a good intro, actually. Well, I think we can skip the "Who are you?" because like these are all regulars for a second. But what is one utility bar talk that you would miss if it was gone from your rack, and it is one that you don't see folks using too often?
Um, I don't know if I don't see folks using it too often, but it might be one that doesn't get talked about a lot because there's so many utilities, so many useful utilities. But um, I'm going to keep it simple and go with a multiple, either a
A
buffered
malt.
malt or just a regular malt. Um, those are really handy to have. Buffered malts. If you don't know the difference, there's some that are powered and there's unpowered. Buffered malt is powered, and what that tries to do is keep your signal consistent from whatever the input was. Malts, as you go along, may possibly. They always say, I've never really tested this. I don't know if you have, but it'll degrade the signal. So if you're sending pitch, you want to use a buffered mult. Um, but for anything else, it should be fine.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of my one little utility that I could never do away with.
Yeah, that one's right at the top of my list. And I don't much care for just buffered malts. Like, um, a- and it's not that the functionality is bad. Like, I really love buffered malts. I have some of them on Cosmo that are just sets of buffered malts. I just got the Helium, which is 4 buffered malts. Um, but my preference is something more like the I think it's Sync DeFaro and the Quant Gemi from Noise Engineering. Those are two buffered mult modules that have additional functionality. And the reason I like those is because the first one, Sync DeFaro, is 4 attenuators, and essentially a buffered mult below it. So you can go 1 to 4, or any number of that. They're sort of normal down, which is really
Right.
handy. And the Quant Gemi is similar, only it's more designed for CV, so it'll raise the voltage by 1 volt per little click on the switch, which is pretty handy for if you have like multiple oscillators and you want to do some quick like octave switching and stuff like that. But also, I just like utilities mixed with buffered mults because then you can sort of sprinkle buffered mults around your system
Yeah.
rather than trying to go into one and remember what that's for. Like the Sync DeFaro is so close to my ideal buffered mult. I would instead of attenuators, I would prefer 4 attenuverters. But it's like almost splitting hairs. And the reason I want attenuverters is because I often use those for envelopes. So I'll put a single envelope in there and get 4 out, so you can put like envelopes into PWM and stuff. And the reason I want attenuverters instead of attenuators is sometimes it's nice to have a reverse envelope. So if you take a reverse envelope into PWM, like that is a sick sound.
Yeah.
So that's the only real reason. But I'm pretty happy with what I got.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I really like my little €1 is for utility modules, stuff like that. So that kind of comes in handy, where you just put all your utilities in the middle, or above or below. Um,
Totally. And that's helium. I put right in the center. I have mass like dead center in my system. I just did a reorg on the Eurorack, and then on one side is the 3x MIA, which is nice for signal sort of adding and all that. You can use it as a mult, but that seems like overkill. And then helium on the other side. So like all of that cool CV stuff can like happen there and go elsewhere. And helium is fantastic. It looks really good in person. Um, and switch malts are really cool, really interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of cool ways to use buffered malts, and like Bartok said, you don't need it for everything, but they're really handy, especially ones that have a little bipolar LED on them. Like if you don't have an oscilloscope, like that's the easiest way to like troubleshoot a thing is throw it into a buffered malt and use it as like a 1 pixel oscilloscope. You can see what's going on with the signal.
right.
Um,
The oscilloscope, that's another useful utility.
yeah,
Um,
I
I
actually use
have.
my my molts more for oscilloscope duty than my actual oscilloscope. um,
Yeah, I have like the IntelliGel Zero Scope, which is what is it, VP? Somebody will correct me. VPDME Zero Tool, but in a 1U form factor, and I mostly use it as a tuner instead of an oscilloscope.
that's awesome. And other folks are bringing up offsets too. Like, I mean, attenuators, attenuverters, offsets, like some sort of mixing, like those in mulch, like those are all just really handy things to have. Um, yeah, that's cool. The WMD offset is pretty rad module. Um, they had another one that was pretty cool that I was tempted to get. I think it's a Logic module that's a little bit different. It's what is it, OSD offset, subtract, divide, or something like that. It's some combination of that for like handling logic. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So how's everybody doing in the chat?
All right. Are you
Look
talking
at
about the WMD SPO?
SPO. That's what it is.
There we go.
Yeah, because I have a bunch of acronyms. Anyway, maybe the OSD is offset sum. That might be a different module that I'm thinking. Yeah, SPO definitely. Okay. What else? I think we already talked about that last week. Delete that. Delete that. We need to talk about that.
What's your simplified signal chain?
Oh yeah, so I've been reworking my Eurorack setup. Like I like my Cosmos setup. I mean this column behind me needs no attention. The top box is
Right.
just for randomly swapping things out, but the two boxes below it are like pretty much what I want. But Eurorack, I've been filling around, rearranging things, trying to get a nice feel for it. And some of the things I was doing like made no sense in hindsight. So like unpatching, moving things around, and like repatching again made a big difference. And simplifying the signal chain. So I'd like set up things so I could like try adding two voices together on the fly, or just doing one or the other, or like changing the oscillators all in one like paths where I just have a bunch of switches and things like that. And it made it just really awful to use because I'd have to remember where things are. And oftentimes I realized I was doing a dumb, and instead of like using like this the WMD select module to switch between voices, like I could just put those voices straight to my mixer and use the switch on there to switch between them if I want to do that, or mix them. Like it's got it built in, so maybe just use that. Anyway,
Right.
that's
So it's
that's those. Yeah, go ahead.
kind of the case of like I have this, so I have to use it, but you end up making it a little more complicated than needed.
Yeah, and then there's some modules that I recently added that made things just a lot easier. So like the MIA, 3X MIA, there's nothing quite like it. There's a I'm forgetting the name of the brand, but the brand that does the Phallustry, they have a module that's similar but a little different. But the
Frap
MIA
tools.
just Frap Tools, they have a module that's pretty similar in the same footprint. So if you can't find the MIA and that one works for you, like go for that one. But the MIA I wanted just for like it's got big controls. I can normal things like it's just slightly different. And the attenuverting versus offset was a big deal for me. I really like attenuverters.
Yeah.
And I was using things like maths. Like maths was pretty much dedicated for like adding signals together, which is not like the best use of maths. Like you can. Um, so this solved a lot of those problems. The Helium solved some problems in terms of like signal splitting. Like I wanted to split up like my kick so that I can sidechain it and stuff like that. And just stuff like that made it a lot simpler. I needed a lot fewer cables for now. But there's also some other modules I'd been underutilizing. Like right now, I'm testing out or really not testing out, but like really getting to know in depth the Bastel Waver, which is sort of a mixer wave folder, sort of funky thing. Like it's definitely not like a clean mixer, right? There is a clean mix output, but that's not really like the best use of it. It's got this other output where you can wave fold between the three inputs or bypass one of them. And I'm using the bypass on one of them because in that particular mode, even when you've got it set to clean, it does impact the wave shape a little bit, almost like a bit of a filter, or maybe there's something in there. But it gets you like some pretty good gnarly like wide sounds without even going stereo yet. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, and instead
I really
of
like wave folders.
Yeah. I agree. And optimizing like my sends and returns and stuff. Like I really like the sound of a spring reverb. I didn't really much care for the sounds of the Desmodus Versio or the other sort of delay or reverb Versios. I tried them all in depth, and they're good sounds. They're really good sounds, but they're not the sounds that work well with me. So I tried just on a whim Ruina Versio, and it turns out that one's pretty good for me. So I'll stick with that for a bit. Yeah, just yeah, cool stuff like that. But it's just a lot simpler. Made it so I can just twist a few things. Yeah. I also have questions about setups and stuff if folks are wanting to give advice. I don't know. Yeah, the Frap Tools 321 is the one that's comparable to the MIA. It's a really good module.
So the Ruina Versio, was that just a different firmware on the same?
Yeah, I just swapped out the firmware. I haven't touched the panel because I just hardly read the panels anyway. But it's their distortion, and it's like like a lot of noise engineering stuff. This distortion in particular has it adds a lot of harmonics and almost like noise, like in the higher ranges, mids and highers. At least that's how I'm feeling it. I mean, there's some filtering and things you can do with it, but that's the sound that I kind of liked, and we just like heard me playing with that a little bit.
What was the process like of trying a different firmware?
Of trying different firmware, yeah.
Like if you were to rank it from 1 to 10, 1 being the easiest to swap it out, taking into consideration, users of all levels of, having to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
Where would you put that?
That's a good question. The firmware, I think the actual process is fairly straightforward. I think the way to get to that information on the noise engineering portal and where the instructions are, like when you click the like you have to log in to get to this portal. You have to remember to click over to, I think, firmware or some other tab than the default, and then you have to click instructions, and the instructions appear below. Maybe in my case it was off the screen, so it took me a minute to figure out where they were going. Once you get those, like there's essentially a couple of things that need to happen. And I streamed this a while ago, I think, but all you have to do is like take the module out of the case. Like it cannot be powered. So you have to just unplug it all, pull it out, plug a USB micro into it and into your computer. Open up Chrome specifically because Chrome has some better ways of connecting to devices. I don't know. Right now it just supports Chrome. And then you like push a little button combo on there. So I think you hold reset and then tap boot, and then the lights change from 2 to 1, right? And then like on the screen on the browser it said like, okay, pick your thing and like go, and like does the thing and lights up on the front, and that's it. Like that, it's somewhat trivial, if not like a little janky, but that's about as easy as it gets for firmware. Like firmware can be kind of rough sometimes, and I'm always afraid to do it because I don't want to brick the thing. I think for theirs they actually have like their own, maybe a bootloader or something, so it would be really hard to brick it. I think you just re-upload the firmware if you like stopped it halfway or something.
And do their modules come with everything you need to do that, or is that like if you want to mess with firmware you got to buy this separate cable?
They I don't think they come with a USB cable.
Mine came with a shiny purple USB cable.
Oh, cool. I just don't remember because I don't have the box, and usually like if there's a USB cable or anything I'm not using in the box, I just leave it in there and throw it in the box pile.
I left mine at Antone's. I need it back.
Your shiny purple cable. Yeah. But there's not too much to it. And you can upload your own custom firmware, but I don't recall if anyone has like open sourced. I don't think they've open sourced theirs. So I think writing your own would be a trick.
I missed the beginning of it. Are you talking about the
Versio? We're talking about the Versio series specifically.
Yes. I mean, from what I understand, it is open sourced in the sense of, so like it's the Daisy, which is totally open source, and there's many different ways that you can, many different languages you can write for it, from what I understand. And the thing is, it has to interface with that specific hardware. And so with the Versio, I think they have made all of that available so that you can write all your own stuff, and it's basically open source. They have done that with Versio. They haven't done that yet with Legio. They're like, that will happen at some point. Hasn't happened yet, so I'm waiting for that. Very excited, because that's what I have. The Legio is not a Versio, but same deal from what I understand. So
For sure.
yeah.
The Legio is really tempting. There's some really cool stuff in there too. And really, if the Ruina Versio hadn't worked out, I'd probably be listing it and trying to pick up the Legio to try some of the other ones. I know there's some similar ones for the Versio, but I wasn't feeling the reverb or the delays in my patches, partially because the types of reverb and delays that I like are gnarly. Which is interesting to say about noise engineering stuff, but like the delay I really like, I just love and can't stop using it, is the triple splashback, which is a bunch of PT 2339 delays. Like, it doesn't get like, I don't know, better or crappier than that, I guess, as far as delays go. And then reverbs, I just find hard to sit into a mix. Like, if I'm doing really slow, more ambient stuff with sparse voices, ambient can, like, the reverb sounds really good on the Desmodus, and the imitator, or what, I can't remember. There's one that's like reverb, one that's like half reverb, half delay, sorta, and one that's like delay. And I tried them all, and like they all sound really good with that stuff. They'll like widen the sound and all of that. But in my case, I just ended up with mud. That noise engineering Legio oscillator, I agree, Egon. That oscillator sounds so good, and some of their other modules, like the dynamics processor, is that the name of it or something? There's one that's like handles dynamics really well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there are only 3 for Legio right now, I think.
Yeah,
but
there's like a drum. It's not specifically a kick, right?
Yeah, no, there's like I got mine like when I got it like the minute it was announced, and the compressor was I had just gotten rid of decided to get rid of vortices.
Oh yeah,
and instead have a couple smaller modules which did the same things, but what I lost was saturation, and that had saturation plus compression, which I didn't have before, and digital, of course, not analog, with the way that the vortices was. But anyway, I love that firmware, and then the oscillator is great, and then the drum, now I'm probably never going back to anything else because it's pretty cool.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's like it's 6 different modes basically.
Yeah,
drum, like bass, middle, and then crazy. So
crazy. I've been leaning more towards the crazy. Like, I had the BIA set at like nearly perma set on this, like, it sort of sounded like a Game Boy kick drum or something. Like, to be honest, like, kind of crappy, but in a really good way. Like, it's one of those kicks that sort of is in the mid range or maybe even high range in terms of harmonics, because it could be used as a snare. Like, it just was a good, like, all around weird sounding drum. And then I changed the settings for another thing because I wanted like a really gnarly, heavy, just disgusting drum, and the BIA is really good at that. And now I can't get the other one back, so I have to figure that out again. But that's okay. That's like modular. Like, you can't always get the same thing. And when I say the same thing, I mean like somewhere in the neighborhood of the same thing. Right. Nowadays we call that lo-fi. You're right, Egon. It doesn't sound crappy. It just sounds lo-fi. Zach said, I feel rack organization is a constant process. Ideas in my head often are often awful in actual practice. I agree with that. And my only advice is to, like, if you're thinking about changing things up, it's really annoying to do on both modular grid and in person. So I'm usually just patient and just try like patching the way I'm thinking and seeing if that feels good, even if the modules aren't like in the right places. And that's what I did with the last one. I just like sort of patched how I might picture the signal path. And then after I stuck that way for a while, I moved things around.
That's a
It's
good
never
approach.
going to be like optimal, but
Yeah. And I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like, there's, you'll try it out and it might work for a while. And then, 6 months later or a year later, you'll just start wondering, what if I change things up a bit?
Yep.
I think it's one of those things where it's always kind of adjusting. And you really have to start playing with it. I never go in modular grid and change it. I always will reflect modular grid as to how it is now after the fact, but I never found that trying it there made much sense.
Yeah, I do a bit of. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say a bit of both also. Like at first I used to do, I tried rearranging modular grid, but I was like, no, it's better just to, just take everything, especially if it's a full rack reshuffle, take everything out and then put things in. And then at the end, after that, then make a grid that like, this is what it is now, just so I have a record of that. But I will say, I've started since getting this new case, the smaller one, that's not a tiny one, the sort of normal sized one there, for the EMS birthday thing, Stream Train. That was the first time I used that, and I actually went into modular grid for like a week before. I didn't really have any time to patch, but I was just like, just moving things around. Like I built like a dozen different possible setups for what I wanted to do, signal paths, and so like the patch was actually totally planned out. I was like, this will, these are the modules I need. This is basically how I'm going to patch them. And I actually had planned all of it before putting it together. And I only made one small adjustment actually after putting it together and patch things together. And it's like, I really actually need an offset attenuverter, so, and I'm not using the third oscillator. So I swapped that out. But otherwise, that was the first time I did that. And it was actually worked out really well, but I don't think I'll be doing that all the time. Although right now I'm actually, I built this little, this is what I've been jamming on for the past like 2 weeks exclusively, this tiny little thing. And I just did
hold on.
something which I sort of planned.
Put it back up there.
Oh. Yeah, let's blow that up.
I planned I planned this on modular grid, and then I swapped one thing out. But basically I just like sit there like on my phone. I'll just make a bunch of different versions of it. I'll go light on it. Just a whole bunch of different versions. So I'll have like 10 or 5 or 10 different modular grid options and say, oh, I like that one or that. So it's a way of sort of like shuffling things around.
Yeah.
As opposed to having like, this is the one thing, just like I'll make one and then I'll just like duplicate it, make another one. But,
yeah. I do very similar. I tend to, I have one modular grid that's I'm just keeping as what my current setup is, period. And then I sort of just duplicate that and iterate on that here and there. Like if I have some ideas just to see how things go. Cause like, unfortunately modules are set widths and things that work in your head don't always match where things can actually fit logically in the case, which I find frustrating. I also find there's some things I just wish were universally applied, like design rules. Like I don't care about your aesthetics as far as panel design, but like Subway, which I'm really looking forward to, if I remember right, has a bunch of jacks. It's like a 4 HP module or 6 HP or something with just a bunch of jacks on the below it, one knob, and then I think 1 or 2 jacks above the knob, which kills me. Like if the knob is going to be performable, you can't put it surrounded by jacks, one side or the other, friends. Because it's like designed to be like, DJ things. But anyway, those are things that like drive me crazy. Like, and I like modular grid for that. So I have an idea, like I have some semblance of like, okay, this like section of my rack is pretty much stabilized. I'm really happy with this set of modules together. I'll pull those out and like set them up, virtually next to each other on top of the modular grid thing, and then like rearrange some stuff and like just move those sections around to see what works better. Like, I don't know. And then if I find something I like, I delete the rest, and maybe I'll one day when I get some time, like 6 hours to kill, I'll unscrew everything and rearrange it. It's not 6 hours, but like it feels like 6 hours to my back.
Yeah, six sounds about right.
Knurlies.
Yes, Knurlies.
I actually, Egon saying that you can just do it New York style and have a module hanging out. I do have that happening with my spring reverb. Like it's not just the reverb; the actual whole module is just sitting on the desk. And actually, when I played Magpie Fest or whatever, yeah, Spook Fest, right before Halloween, the person after me was OK House Cat, which is phenomenal, and you should check them out. But I thought it would be funny to do, because I have the Cat V2 module, to do a House Cat solo, and didn't have room in my rack, so I just like I like less than like just enough for a cable to come out between modules, and it was just like dangling there. Yeah.
This is my little
oh my gosh, this is like the Halloween candy bowl for modular.
Yeah, it's like, well, this is like the modules that just don't fit in. It's just random, you know. But these are mostly passives that I've built. So these are ones that, you know, I can't justify putting in the case because I don't use them all that time. They're bigger than they need to be, and they also don't need to go in the case. So these often hang out. So it's like, oh, I need an ore. So, you know, then this is hanging off the side, you know. Or if I'm using the spring reverb unit I have, it has RCA, and so then here's this, you know, Euro jack to RCA thing I built, you know, or this thing I think I brought to Antone's. It's quarter-inch adapter, you know.
That thing, format jumbler, is a pretty handy. I gotta say.
So that's mainly what these things are, and then this dope for. I really need this module to work, and it's worked once.
That's the USB one?
Ever, yeah. And it should be so simple. It should just plugs into the 5-volt rail.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't ever work.
Huh.
And it doesn't work in different ways each time. Like sometimes it makes the entire rack shut down.
Oh.
Sometimes it just doesn't provide power. It's just no good.
Yeah, I want to build essentially. Go ahead.
I'll say that's his need a module, take a module bucket.
Exactly right. Oh, little side trivia of this bowl. A friend of mine who's really into film trivia, he gave this to me as a gift years ago. It's made by Lance Hendrickson, who is he plays Bishop in Aliens. He's an actor and a potter and a bunch of other things. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, just a little side trivia.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Zach is saying Knurlies are definitely worth it. I somewhat agree. I end up using a screwdriver anyway because it's actually faster for me to just like, you know, like that's. And then I'm like, why do I have Knurlies if I just? They're really handy when I'm pulling out a single module to like do a firmware update, for example, or like swap something out. Like, you know. I will say that.
Well, yeah, my habit of building these tiny little racks, constantly pulling them out of here, they're awesome for that.
Yeah. And there's I saw a couple other brands have versions of Knurlies that I think I might like a little better. They're slightly lower profile, but a little bit wider, so you have more torque when you screw them in. Because I find my Knurlies, if I just use my fingers, eventually they get loose because I guess I have weak fingers. So I usually follow up with a quick like half turn from a screwdriver.
Yep. I'll do that if it's not one that I'm going to pull out.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, the temporary stuff, right now I'm just lucky enough to have a little bit of counter space in front of my Euro rack to just like let stuff hang out on the counter plugged in. Which probably isn't great for them, especially some are like hand wired. So probably should put them in a case, but it is what it is. Yeah. What else?
Well, I really want to put this. I love this no control. I didn't use it for a little while just because I was getting into just everything in the case. So I didn't have like, you know, with this new setup, I don't have the shelf in front for sequencers. So like the SQ1 and the zero control, which I haven't had for, you know, used recently just weren't being used as much. Also, because I actually now have a couple in-rack sequencers, and then using it again here is just like, it's so great. It's like, what a great, very performative, so I wish I could just drop it into the rack more easily, but so it
Isn't
goes.
that kind of fun where you have like one of those devices where like you stop using it for a while, and then when you go back to it, it's like going home. Like it's just a really nice feeling. It just works the way you want. Like get things like it's just cool. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's cool. I feel like this little thing that I built here right now that I've been jamming on. My original setup was like it's the SQ1, but it's like a sequencer, no coast, and then like Monsoon, and so it's just like a couple things. It's like the basic synth that can do a bunch of different things, and then some effects, and then often I had it hooked up to the delay pedal and looper pedal, so I had little pedals, and like I love that setup. And so now I feel like this actually, what I've sort of replicated is it's kind of like that, but with more function. Like, so I've got the extra, ornament and crime, so that's like I've got 2 sequencers running, and then can add them together. I got the sample and hold, math, so it's just like more utility, although and then the mimeophone, which is acting as the looper. And so I had never used it as a looper, and it's just like where it's sort of in that middle range. I've always done like extremely long or extremely short. And so finally using it in the 20-second or 15-second or 10-second zone, and it's great.
That's cool.
So that's the kind of thing, exactly what you're talking about, is like coming back to an old thing. It's like mimeophone is, as you may know, is my favorite module of all time. And and I feel like I've used it a lot and really explored it, but then in the last week I'm like, it's a whole new module. The way that I'm using it, it's like I'm actually clocking it on the input, which I generally haven't done. And it's just it's pretty cool getting new new ways to play with it. So that's fun.
That's rad.
Yeah, and your video that you did on the enthusiastic educates on the mimeophone was really cool. So if you have more of those, I'd say keep throwing those little tricks and tips up there.
Yeah,
I would like to see some more tricks and tips videos. Like they could be like 2 minutes long. Like I think that'd be really cool. I've been thinking about doing this too, like where you have that moment of epiphany, like hit stream, be like, hey, look at this cool thing I did, and listen to it. All right, thanks. You can do it too if you want. Bye.
Yeah, that's great. We've got the channel for it, like the playlist.
Yeah.
So if we could fill that up with tidbits, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, because there's like all sorts of cool little bits that we're constantly figuring out. I don't know, and I don't know. I'm probably not sharing enough because it's not like a perfect song or something.
Which kind of, I think that's a good lead into another question you have on here is why stream?
Oh yeah. Like
why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because we have seen some newer folks streaming, and this is like a question open to the chat too, because I'm just curious, like why bother with streaming at all? It is like honestly very painful to set up. Like you got to learn all this OBS crap, and that's not even including like frame rate stuff. Just like the UI itself is like it takes a minute. And then you got to figure out like optimal bitrate settings and all of this stuff, and everyone has different opinions, and like one modular group will be like 720p only and the other one will be like 1080p only at 30 fps, but your audio will be like just really annoying. So like why stream?
Yeah, so I'll jump in on this. First I'd say for those OBS settings, we do have pinned messages on what we recommend and what seems to have worked the best. And of course you can always go in if you feel comfortable in changing those settings and seeing what happens and what that does to your setup. I think some of it also has to do with like what your bandwidth is.
Yeah.
So if you can support it, then sure, crank some settings up. But we do have some pinned messages with that, and a lot of people in the Discord that are willing to help, get you set up and test. And as far as like getting set up and testing, you don't need some crazy setup either. I started with just, I think, a static image. I know a couple of other people did the same thing, where I just took a picture of my setup and had that there until I actually got a camera. But as to like why I stream, for me, it was kind of a way just to do something with all of this that I'd been gathering. My whole goal was to try to make something somewhat musical, and streaming allowed me to explore some ideas that I had, and then also just to kind of put things out there and then go back and listen and see like if I was happy with what I was doing. That's kind of why I started.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I feel like the reason that I love Modular is versus other. I like always liked making music. I'm not that great on a single instrument, and where I'm responsible for making all the sounds, as opposed to something here where I can like start a clock and it's taking care of some stuff, and then I'm like setting some, it's doing some, and like so you're integrally involved in what's coming out, but at the same time it's a different thing. It's than a guitar or something. But but anyway, the point. But like in terms of like actually having like producing music, like I'll just jam on my own and just have fun with something, and that's a great it's a great sort of relaxing thing. But in terms of putting out music, like I'm just like useless when it comes to trying to multi-track. Like for decades, I've had various DAWs and like try to record music, try to write songs, and like I just never do it. I never finish a song of any sort. I just can't. It's just not the way I think. Even though I edit 10 hours a day for my job, but it's like a different thing, and so with this, it's just like it's done. Like you turn it on, you hit go, and like this is it. It's a performance, and I love that performative element of it, and like I've always loved that side of music as well. Like I've played in bands which are, like jazz or blues, things that are like more improvisational, and the nature of music with those is very, it's a language, and so in that sense, it's about coming into a room with people who are also playing or who are listening, and it's everybody getting on the same wavelength, and it's about communicating some idea that's not in words, and it's not something like that. And so like that's sort of like the nature of music. So in the sense, this is like it accomplishes both of those things for me, where it's like I'm like when I hit start, I was like, this is the beginning of the thing. And then when I hit stop, this is the end of the thing. And like, and that's the thing. And it's a real thing. Like I've made a thing, I've done the thing, and then I don't have to worry about it afterwards. I don't have to like now go back and edit it or anything like that. So like, it's a thing that's done. And then it's also sharing with, the one or two other people who might tune in. And even if it's just one or two other people, and even if it's nobody, it's it's out there, and it's a sort of a different mindset. And so I love that. So, but it's also been really nice again with this little box that I've had to not stream and to jam, and that's also been kind of cool to like go back to that as well, and not worry about setting all the things up.
That's cool.
You just have it for 5 minutes.
Yeah, it is. It can be annoying to set things up. I mean, a lot of the reasons you mentioned, both of you mentioned, are hit home for me too. One thing I really like about it, particularly with EMS, is that you don't necessarily have to have a camera. Like you can put as much of yourself out there as you're comfortable with. So if it's audio only for 2 minutes, you can do that. Whereas like if you go to an in-person meetup, like that's a lot of stress. Like you're probably stressing out for a lot of different reasons. Unique to you, like that can be really not a great way to like play in front of people for the first time. Whereas this, like, my first stream, I thought I needed to have something particularly refined because EMS is really cool and I admired it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to make this cool finished track and then I'm going to play it. And then it turns out like my interface was like, had the gain like pretty high. So it was just like a clipping mess.
Clipping the hook,
but it was like really good because people were like, oh, that's still cool. Like I can play, like, it's not that there's a low bar. There's just folks that are more willing to listen to like interesting things. But I like that. I particularly found that for myself, like as I progressed, like I think when I started, I think I had the camera away from my face. Like I think it was just like my MS-10 or something, like pointed at the machines. Um, which is really cool. I think that's a good progression to like point at your gear for a minute, because then you're not stressing about like how you look or anything, and folks can still like be like, "Oh, I see you're not using that. Like, what if you plug that into that?" And like, you can always ignore them. Or sometimes it's a really good idea that like completely changes the vibe. Like that's something that I really like with the EMS audience. Like I think like in particular, like I don't know, I just remember a moment like this is like a aha moment where Egon was like, "Hey, why don't you lower the BPM a little bit?" And I did that, and I was like, "Oh, now the song is good. Good job." Like things like that. I really like the audience participation, not necessarily like I don't know. You can't hear the bass on my phone. Like I don't care. Like listen on your phone if you want. I don't care if you can hear the bass. Like I'm streaming a crappy stream. I have very low pressure for myself on streaming, but I also really like the documentation side of it. So like being able to go back and listen to something that maybe I was nervous about or like played like 6 months ago and being like, oh, that was really good. I should do that again and make it part of like a regular set. Like
Yeah.
that's something I really like. And obviously I'm never going to be able to like figure out that patch again, but like I can at least pull a melody and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty fun. And
Yeah. And
there's
I think
always
we've all kind of hit on points
yeah,
that people in the chat are saying.
yeah,
It's a good motivational tool. Woke and Zach both kind of mentioned that, and I agree with that too. It kind of forces you to do something other than having it just sit there. All I will say, I kind of went for about a good solid year of this just sitting here without doing anything. And EMS kind of brought me out of that. That's what got me back into forcing myself to perform and play and patch and experiment. So sometimes you need a break. That's fine too. But also, Egon saying that even with EMS having that audience that is familiar with what you're doing is really fun and exciting. And like you said, you'll get some people that will say, "Hey, try this," or "What is that? Like, how do you, what does it do?" And then that can lead to conversation of, "Well, can you try this with it?"
yeah. And I really like that about EMS. It's like my testing ground. Like I'm totally comfortable like patching from scratch or like doing audio design for an hour on EMS. Whereas like when streaming on like my personal Twitch, like people show up on Twitch like expecting me to be like a DJ or something. And like if they show up and I'm doing like 2 hours of just a held drone note, doing audio design, like playing with different patches, like that doesn't fly super well. So maybe it does. I don't know. I haven't had success with that there. So I tend to like go to EMS because it's like I can hang out with my friends and do a patch at the same time. Like I don't feel like I'm need to impress strangers. I'm like, hey, check out this thing. I really like this riff, but something's not right. Or like, I just want to see how people react to it. Because sometimes I really like things and then they'll be like, that song exists. Also, we just got a strike. Cool. What song is that? So I can listen to it because I really like that song, it turns out. But yeah, I really like it for that. It's just
I
cool.
was like, the what is EMS? Like, I definitely see it as so. Like, I see it as two different things. It's like there's that side of it is like there's different. It's like the venue. Like, there's some bar in a city where like people will try out their stuff. Like I don't know what it is anymore, but like some bar, parts of
Yeah,
LA.
where they'll
Like it's
try
like the
out
off
like
it's like the off strip place where like people just show up and try out new material, whether it's comedy or music or whatever. I feel like this is like that. It's like this is the hangout where you can show up and try out your stuff, and then also it'll be some great performances in that, and you'll have some amazing performances, and then also like we'll have the show night, where it's like the people actually show up and have something a little bit more planned within a time period. And then but I feel like it's that, and I feel like it's also like a college radio station in a way, where it's just like a bunch of different, it's like eclectic music, and it's like you never know what you're gonna get when you tune in, and it's great. It's always gonna be something interesting.
It doesn't even matter who it is either, like
right.
There's just some people like where like they've played similar types of music, and every once in a while I'll click in and be like, all right, I'm ready for some ambient cave music, and then it's like electro pop or something from that person. I'm like, oh yeah, all right, cool, like it, just as good but totally unexpected, like always surprised. So I'm happy with that. Somebody asked, let's see, Robbie asked if we should do new EMS shirts. I think we should. There's a discussion in the Discord on the EMS shirt channel. Should we do like a shirt contest or something? I don't know. I'm out of the loop on that one because I have the shirt that Bar Talk is wearing. And I'm particularly happy with it. So
if you want this shirt, send me a DM on Discord. I'm working on a list of a few people who've shown interest.
Like that, the shirt you're wearing,
the shirt I'm wearing,
the shirt off his back. What a guy!
This particular one
costs extra for it to be unwashed.
You get it for 2 weeks, and you have to mail it to the next person on the list.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. No, but if you want this style, send me a message. Once I get, I think a few more people, I could put an order in. Yeah, but if there's talks about a new design, I say whoever wants to run it, have at it.
So that's something interesting that I selfishly would like to see, is like I like that we have an official shirt, and I like that we go through like local folks to get it done. I believe Alpha Stare did it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that rules. But one of the things that's I think is kind of cool on the Magpie Pirates is they sort of have this Magpie Pirates store where like literally anybody can design a t-shirt and like throw it up there, and it's one of those like mediocre shirt on demand services kind of thing. But I think it'd be cool to see some of that because there's some really good artists in EMS, and like
that's a great
I don't want to do like a shirt contest or like that feels, I don't know. I just want to make them all.
That's a great idea. Like if everyone can throw it up there, that's definitely in like the EMS style. That's like, or the EMS spirit rather.
Like we could maybe do a combo where like we have the official ones where we go through Alpha Stare, and then like for any random idea that's cool, like we could throw it up on this. I don't know. Anyway, that's all. Like if you're interested in that, drop some ideas.
Yeah. It's also like, it's one thing is like I feel like a lot of this also is there's a maker space. I stopped by in New York one time, and they're showing me around. They're like, it's a do-autocracy here, where it's like basically if you do it, it gets done. So it's like it's not. Don't wait for like an official person necessarily to
Right. Nothing is stopping you from making your own EMS shirt for yourself. Like I do that with my hats. So yeah. I don't want to get too in the weeds on shirts though. What else? What was another thing I wanted to talk about?
Modules purely for visuals or cool factor?
No, I think oh yeah, we can talk about that. So that's not like high. I'm just doing a quick skim. That's just like, these are like old ideas. So like there's some modules that I have that are like almost entirely for cool factor. Like the cassette tape one, the Loop Man from Error Instruments, like is objectively an okay module that can probably be done by any number of ways. Probably doesn't even need to be touching the rack. Like it's a Walkman with a loop tape in it, right? Like there's some Vactrols and stuff, so you can use it like gates and like some niceties there. But like you can also just get a Walkman and put some batteries in it and put a loop tape in it and get a pretty similar vibe. Yeah, that one is
Yes.
ultra cool. Ultra cool. I made one and I broke it. Mine wasn't as cool as that. That gold plate is sick.
Wow,
So
that's
like
awesome.
this is a question for chat. Do you have like modules that just make you smile? Like they don't necessarily have to be the best at what they do, but they're just like pretty dang cool.
Where's my
Like I was looking at the new Molten Modular module, the I don't even remember what it's called. It's just like three I think attenuverters that have visualizers around it. Looks really cool. I'll have to make some heck hats available
Like-
at some point.
this is one of my favorites. The favorite things I can ever put in my rack, and it's a blank, and it's the Lorem Ipsum by Noise Engineering, and that's I've done a little bit of work with publishing like newspapers or magazines or something like that, where it's like as an English major, so like Lorem Ipsum is the placeholder, and it just the fact that it's just makes me laugh and it makes me smile every time I see it. And unfortunately, I never have 4 HP of blank space to put it in, but whenever I do.
I think I hung that somewhere. I also have I got like the 10 or 15 HP or so, the wide version of that, because as a designer that like hits home.
Yeah, exactly.
Like nothing makes me happier and madder than somebody being like, hey, can you design this thing? We don't have any content. And I'm like,
Yeah.
But I like that's like at this point in my career, I don't have to do that anymore, because I can just be like, I'm not designing anything for you until I have content. Because if I do, I'll just have to redesign it in 10 minutes when you have content. Anyway, it's just a placeholder. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm curious what other cool modules like just look really cool that you like. Like I'm getting a couple. Like I got data for that reason, but I think I'm gonna swap that out for a pair of the Paratech. Like I forget what they're called. They're like cool tiny triple screen visualizers, because it turns out I mostly use data for visualization, and there's some things I can't replace it for. So like I brought it to DEF CON with the idea that the oscilloscope music I make every once in a while, I could play through there, so you could read like the sound as I pipe it into there, and it works okay for that. But I don't need that very often, especially at home. So these are just different little cool things. Make me happy.
What's one I think you recently ordered? That's the counter.
Oh yeah, that's also Paratech. Paratech. I heard the dude was struggling. He's in Russia, and like their government is run by a terrible person, and includes a lot of terrible. Anyway, I'm not. He's struggling as a result of some of that. Lots of COVID. Like, so I was like, I'm just gonna order a few modules. So I grabbed some, and I think they're really cool. They're like often very lo-fi. This one is a Nixie tube counter, and it's called the I forget, but basically it's just a counter. Like it's just displaying in a cool way via Nixie tubes. It's got 3 small ones.
Awesome.
And then there's a couple more, and they're all just things that I think are really cool and low tech. Like there's one that's just I think a 4 HP thing that's all it has is a physical relay in it. So like physical relay is something that like when it is turned on, you hear like a click. So like I think it'd be fun to like run like the pipe the hat signal through it or something, just so you can hear like when the headphones off. Depending on how loud it is, or maybe I'll mic it up or put it next to ears or something. Like
would it screw things? I wonder, like, would you get interference? What if you did something like that, but it's like a combination of that or the music box module, only it's a turbo motor, so you get like,
You would definitely get some interference depending on where you put it, for sure. And servos take some amps to do their thing.
I guess you have to just, it would be a separate external box, like
They're thirsty.
like a reverb tank. It's your servo tank, you know.
Yeah.
I like this. This one's a silly design.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That one is like 100% cool factor. Like
Yeah,
that one
and I got it mainly because also it's that guy's name is Tim, and my name's Tim. So, but it was like it's sort of a unique thing, and it's one where I got it just, you know, partly because it's silly and partly because it's unique, and then it's one of these ones where like I don't use it often, but whenever I do, I just love what it does because I don't have any other module that does this, you know. And it's very simple. It's extremely simple what it does too. You know, it's just 4 oscillators combined into one output, and you can change the input, you know, the speed of them. Each of them is CVable, but it's not volt per octave. And then this will go between 2 different waveforms, and this will switch between which waveforms it's going between. And it's analog, and I like it a lot. It's great.
That module is so dumb in a good way.
I think my favorite, I mean, like my Let's Splosh though, the nonlinear circuits Let's Splosh is like I accidentally used the resistor, you know, is the LEDs are way too bright, but it's kind of awesome that they are. It's just like, and it's one where it's just you plug in 4 different you know, signals coming into it, whatever it is, CV, and then it just combines those 4 into a bunch of different ways, and so it's just the flashiest, blinkiest. It's a very joyful module.
That's awesome.
And it gives you
I think there's like a limit to the amount of blinky that I like.
Yeah.
And the only way I can describe this is if the module starts to feel like Las Vegas, it's a little bit too far on the blinky side for me. Like there's the Euclidean, is it circles? The one that's like 3 circles with the lit up potentiometer, like or encoders or whatever they are. That one is like insanely cool looking, but definitely feels a little bit like Vegas. One module. It also happens to be a really good module, which is cool.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because like half my modules have like a lot of blink, and then like half of them have no lights at all, and so it's weird when sometimes I turn on the you know, if it's like patching in a dark room, there's like this dark section of the modular, and there's like a crazy blinky section, you know.
Well, that's what mine has right now. So like I have some lights, like this light right here that you can see me covering, but when I've been streaming, I've been turning that on because it's like too dark if the ceiling light is off. So I'll turn these on just a bit, and the panels on my Cosmo rack are a little bit reflective, but
it looks so good.
The stuff that I made myself. So those just fade into complete darkness because they absorb all of the light.
Yeah. No, but the text glows, like it reflects, like it looks so good. Like your last few streams where you've been doing that, it looks so good. It's like it almost looks like blacklight in a way, you know.
That's cool. I appreciate it.
It looks really good.
Sunglasses will fix. Yeah, I have not really had a problem with too bright of lights. Actually, the closest would be my tuners or the oscillators with tuners that I built in Cosmo, because the green lights in particular, they're bipolar red green. Oh no, these aren't even bipolar. It's the tuner is just multiple LEDs. I put greens in, and I should have probably put blues and maybe some resistors in, because when I'm looking at it to tune it, like it's insanely bright and I can't see right in front of me for a while.
Well, if they're clear LEDs, also they're very directional, you know.
Yes,
so like if you have to stand off to the side, so that's
I tune it from the side now. That's a good trick. Like
my Let's Splosh is the clear blue with like not enough resistance to make them dimmer, and it's great. But yeah, at first like I'd put like a strip of white paper tape across the top, and that would, you know, enough light was coming. It was still very bright, but it was no longer blinding. And I think I saw some trick about somewhere with like put like a dab of you know, some like either paint, nail polish, or you know, something to like, you know,
nail polish, or if it's like a recessed LED, you can fill the hole with hot glue. A light.
Right. Yeah. I know that's something I haven't played with at all is light tubes, and I'd like to a lot. That's just the plastic strip that if you have a surface mount LED below the panel, and then it's just like the plastic solid plastic core that just, you know, will transmit that light from the panel up to the surface, and it's like
I actually have a project in the garage that's involving light tubes that somebody gave me. I think for I don't remember why I got this, but they're like two. I think they were given it for a gift, and they just thought maybe I could use it because I actually got doors. They're like two they're like the things from airplane like shopping catalogs where they're kind of techy but also gimmicky and useless.
Yeah.
They clamp
Sharp
onto
edge.
whatever running shoes you have, and then they light up with this plastic strip around the heel, bright red or green, so that you don't get hit by cars or something. They're so grippy you can actually like feel it on your heels and it doesn't feel good and they fall off. So like I pulled them apart and I think I'm just going to make them into like a CV controllable thing that I tape to the inside or glue to the inside of one of my Cosmo cases. So that's
one thing I'm definitely planning on building in like probably would be like I don't know 12 HP or maybe a little more is a flux capacitor blank.
yeah.
But they've already done something too because I have it's the same LEDs as the on the Euclidean circles. Like that's the standard NeoPixel like package, and I've got a whole bunch left over from long ago, which are these 8-pixel strips. So it's like a strip of 8 of those, and I have a bunch of them, and they're so I'm going to take 3 of them and arrange them to go like a flux capacitor. So.
Needs like 8.8 volts to actually like do
right,
its
exactly. That's a good idea. It'll definitely either be CV control or else a clock on its own. That'll be
cool. That'll be cool.
That's a good idea, though. That's the threshold for going nuts.
Like, chat, what are some modules that you have that you just think look cool that you just like? I think Robbie has like Egon has the pink Loquitus something or another.
Loquilic Iteritas.
Loquilic, yeah. That one's pretty sick looking too.
Yeah.
And would just make me happy because pink and black work really well together. Just saying. I'm trying to think of what.
I know. I was thinking about getting so I've got the generic panel for the Legio.
Yeah.
So it's Antri Legio. So it's generic, and I'm glad I have that panel because I plan on switching up the firmware and playing with it. That's one reason I got it. But the Timp Legio panel is also very funny. It makes me laugh. It has like boot mode and cat mode and boing and quack and all. So it's silly words. I like the silly words. They're funny. So, but it's not as cool as the pink module, of course. Yeah.
I do also have some modules that look cool. I'm gonna make Bar talk big while we're talking. I have some modules that I'm gonna use actually. Let's do this view.
Cable.
Sorry. There it is. There's some modules that look cool and do really good at whatever the thing is. So
that's nice. It's like it looks and is cool.
Yeah, and I think the Molten Modular is one. I don't think I'd get like 6 of those in one set, but like set up. But like the new one is pretty cool.
Yeah.
VNI Cursal looks sick. And is a great. It's what is it like a quad VCA? If I remember right. Slash mixer or something like that.
There it is. The VNI Cursal.
Oh the red one. You got the red one. Yeah,
looks great.
That's sick. That's so good.
And I put red those little caps on it.
That's nice.
But it comes with just black ones. No, I can't.
Wait, what's that? What's that one next to it? Is that a Trogtronic thing?
Yeah, this is a Trogatronic M11 that's upside down, just because it puts the button up here. But it's a VCA with a momentary switch, so it can either be on, or you turn it off, and then it's only activated when you press the button.
Right, so it can be momentary or switching.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, it's cool.
That's what I'm hoping for with the one Paratech thing I got. But if it's just, I suspect it's just going to be momentary due to the nature of it. Either way, I'm not going to be upset. It's going to be fun.
Let me tell you. I was gonna. module that I had though that was like too blinky on its own, like when it wasn't it was doing something, but like unpatched, it was marbles. I had the factory marbles, which is a great. I hate like saying, you know, like I got rid of it, but for just because my own patching, like I was like, I love everything it does, and it does everything together really well. But I felt like for my own sort of like brain patching, I was like, this is I want to. Like I want to actually make those connections instead of having it do it all for me, in a way. And so I got rid of it, and now I have all the different parts that make it, you know, as different things. But it was always going crazy on its own, just like flash, 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 flash. Like even when I patched into it, I was like, calm down, module. But you can make it really slow, I guess. But Marbles is awesome. Don't want to say anything bad about Marbles because it is an awesome module.
Yeah, Marbles is great.
There's this thing. Here's a module, which it's not a module, but I'm going to make it a module, which is this.
Is that oh my, that is just the light of the sun.
It's pretty bright. No, it's basically
it's a keypad, right?
It's a keypad. It's a macro pad from Adafruit, and it has cherry keycaps, and it's oops, I'm typing crazy stuff. Like it's macroing into the chat in YouTube right now. So anyway, it's cool, but it's there's someone wrote a like a sequencer. I mean, it's got a very powerful processor. Basically, it's a Raspberry Pi processor, a very fast one in there, so it can handle sequencing no problem. And it has a little output there, a little expander, which has just 2 pins. So that could be a clock in and a MIDI out. Like it could, you know, just plug into that. So I wouldn't have to do any hacking to this at all. So my plan is to make this actually fits. It's like the right height for, you know, like this panel, these things just sit in here. So instead of this panel that it came with, or you can buy separately, I just take that out and make a different laser cut, a different one that is, you know, has Euro rack sized, and then has the little jacks on the side. So that should be very easy to do, and then just make a you know, some way of powering it. So that's, but then there's programming. But anyway, that's my plan, is to make this into a little.
Well, you know what I actually just want somebody to make is a small PCB that all it is a Eurorack to USB converter, so that you can glue that thing to the back or bolt it or tape it or whatever, use just a little USB cable, power it, and you're good to go. Like I want to do that for things like that, or other USB devices I want to pop into my rack. So
that's, yeah. I know I like, I've got to decide whether I want to make this run off the 5-volt rail, or whether, you know, just make it the standard.
I mean, that would be an easy thing to include on the PCB, probably, is just like, do you want to just pull it straight from the 5-volt? And I feel like there's some other components you'd want, but yeah, just to make sure, because power's nice and smooth. Because USB devices like that Doper one can be finicky depending on the voltage. I don't know.
Yep. This page here, mostly it's set up for my editing software short keys, but I've got a couple pages which are like this one. I'm pressing this, and it's popping up in chat. Just it's the description for all the videos, you know, and then I can, you know, if I click that, it's like everyone's various names programmed in. So
that's cool. That's cool.
Cut and paste, and the whole description of you know, the EMS description. So when I'm cataloging videos, I can just
I got to get one of those and just make all of the buttons just say clap or something.
Fire macro,
ham fist it. That's cool. All right, does anybody else have any questions or things they want to discuss? I take off shortly, but we could talk a little bit longer.
I did have a question. Enthusiastic, you were having problems with power on that USB module.
Yes.
Did you ever try? I think there's either Mutable made something where it's like a special power. I don't know if it's a conditioner for 5-volt modules, but you can. I know.
I know. Well, didn't
Tronic
they?
has
Wasn't it
something.
just like basically to convert if you didn't have a 5-volt rail? It was a way of getting 5 volts, or was it something else? I didn't look at it too carefully. I've seen it, but I haven't
Oh, okay.
examined it. Maybe
Um,
it is more than that. I don't know.
I
I
know
mean, basically,
Tronic has something called the M05 silencer. I don't know. I just don't know if something like that would what it's really for, and if that's what it's for, if it would help.
yeah. I mean, this one, like it has the power pin in the back is just it's just a 2-pin thing. It's ground and 5-volt in, and it came with an adapter that plugs into it's the 16-pin, and then it has a little circuitry on it, and then 2 wires out that plug into it. And that's what came with it. And when I plug that into anything, it will make all the other basically it shorts out the power rail. It makes everything else not work when you plug it in. And so I thought, well, this the thing that came with it is broken. So then I made my own where I just, basically I just took 2 jumpers and just like connected it from there directly onto the pins, and that worked on the 4MS pod, one of them, but it doesn't work on my main rack. And then it doesn't work on the other. It's not repeatable. And then I tried to make my own, which was like permanently, and it didn't work. So anyway, what I would like actually is I think would be great for it's the Befaco power supply. Basically, it's the 4 HP power supply, and it's like the other ones where it's like the row powers, which I have, but it has 15-volt in, and then it provides the power on the backside. But it also has a USB out on the front and a 9-volt out on the front for pedals. And so
right.
That seems pretty cool.
Did you check out? Well, yeah, I don't know. There's the next power supply I'm looking at. There's a Winter Bloom one that I think is pretty cool that I want to try out.
Yeah, that one's I think. Yeah, I'm trying to decide. My next case, I decided I was originally going to do something like the big case, like this, only instead of 126 HP rails, it's going to have 40 HP rails. So it's basically, but then I decided to skip the no coast part and just basically I'm going to make a square case that's 12 inches by 12 inches.
Yeah.
240 HP rows, and then on the right there's going to be like a carved out spot for like a few more modules, and that's where I'll put the power and the headphone out, so it won't eat up the rack space. And it will make it square. So I have a nice piece of maple that I'm just going to use for that. So
yeah,
nice.
That'd be nice. I'm also doing a couple. My next ones will be actually like closer to that one, where they're essentially 1 Cosmo row each, and they have incredibly low power supply requirements because it's like up to 8, maybe 10 modules, all very low power requirements. So
yeah. So I was looking at the Winter Bloom. I was like, I guess I could have the row power on that one, because those you can just pop in and out. But I was looking at the Winter Bloom. If I do need a little case on board power supply, that Winter Bloom one looks pretty great.
Yeah, for larger, I went with, like Zach is saying in the chat, for larger, I went with Tronic. But for smaller, I think Winter Bloom, or even if you've got the space, like a couple of Meanwhile power supplies are mostly what I use for my Cosmo stuff, because they're pretty low effort.
Yeah, I still use these. I don't know why. It seems wrong to me that the little the row power ones, where it's like the entire PSU is in that 4 HP thing. Like, it's enough power to supply. It's like 2 amps, and I don't understand how something so small can provide. I want it to have big caps, like big caps, and like a heat sink or something like that, But I've got 2 of them and they work great. So.
That's fantastic. Yeah, like the stuff I use for Cosmo is the exact opposite. They're like monstrous power supplies that put out like 5 amps or something. And then just a regular power cable, or conversely, I still have an FC UK power supply in this one, and that one has like pretty monstrous caps inside of there, and a monstrous wall wart thing that is sketchy. Gets hot. All right, see you later, Zach. I think we're about to call it anyway. we have some new snow, so I want to go snowboarding. Oh, I want one last thing. It's Noisevember. We have a few days left for folks to get their Noisevember patches, and they just have some fun with it. Like I've been having a lot of fun this month with noise, and I think you should too. So whatever that means to you, like put up a stream. There's no like limit or limitations or anything beyond that, and tag just mention I think at Modular in Discord in the Modular chat, and we'll get you all added to playlist. Next week we'll do the recap, and then I think I'm gonna switch the what the heck day back to Wednesday for the winter because I want to snowboard in the mornings. I'm sorry, Europe. So if you want to be on my show and you're in Europe, next weekend's it. We can make some exceptions, but like, yeah, that's is what it is.
What the heck? Winter edition's back on Wednesdays.
Yeah, it'll probably be Wednesday. Probably too late for Europe, and I apologize for that. Yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll post the information places, but just that's a heads up. Yeah, have a good rest of your weekend, everybody, and make some noise. Yeah,
good chat.
And buy some Make Noise. You know what? That actually probably counts for Noisevember. Like you can use any Make Noise module. It doesn't even have to make noise, and I will count it on the playlist.
So noise engineering, Make Noise.
This is not sponsored by Make Noise. Oh yeah, Noise Engineering also counts.
Right.
Yeah,
we're not sponsored by them either. But if either would like to, just send Schmooster some modules. Later.
All right.
Actually,
bye, everybody.
I can play us out. I'll do a
play us out.
little music-y stuff. Let's see.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.